I'm David Futransky, ETHS 1969. I am the Senior Director of Institutional Advancement at Evanston Township High School, where I work with the ETHS Alumni Association and the ETHS Foundation. It's my pleasure today to welcome you to another session of Coming Together, Conversations with ETHS Alums. Today we're going to have one of our more important topics to our alumni, which is basketball 2021. We have a wonderful panel. Our host today is Mike Ellis, the coach of our men's program at ETHS. And on the program is also Brittany Johnson, the coach of our women's program. With us are four members of the Athletic Hall of Fame at ETHS, and some of them are also recipients of the Distinguished Alumni Award. Dan Peterson, class of 1953, is known as the coach in Europe, where he coached Milan to European championships and Italian league championships. From the class of 1968 and the men's championship team of 1968, Walt Perrin has joined us. Walt is currently the assistant general manager of the New York Knicks, in charge of scouting and looking at players to join that team. From the class of 2003, we have two members. One is Cassidy Hubbard, an ESPN sports journalist who follows the NBA and is on national broadcasts, and Austin Brown, who is at CAA and is one of the lead agents for NBA players and prospects. It's a very interesting group, and without taking much more time, I'm just going to turn this over to Mike Ellis and let him get the panel going. Please enjoy it, and I'll come back at the end with a few comments.
Let's start off with Dan Peterson. Dan, I'd be curious as a coach, and Brittany Johnson, our women's coach, is on here as well. Who are some of the best players that you've ever coached?
Well, Mike, first of all, hi to Walt Perrin, and congratulations on your new job in the big city. Great to see Walt, and saw him in '68 win the state title. I'm Dan Peterson, ETHS 53. Mike, you should know, I got cut every single year I was there, okay? Too little, not good enough. Danny Blaze cut me as a freshman, Carl Plath as a sophomore, Rocky Hampton as a junior, and Jack Burmaster came in my senior year, so I was 4 for 4. But those guys, without Rocky, gave me the encouragement I needed to go into coaching. You know how important that is. So I'm grateful to them and grateful to ETHS. The greatest players I ever coached, no doubt in my mind, I have to give 3 names, Mike, because 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame in Springfield. So I had Dino Meneghine, 6'9", the greatest Italian player of all time. I had Bob McAdoo, who played at North Carolina NBA, 3 times the leading scorer in the NBA, twice NBA champion, 1-time MVP. And then Mike D'Antoni, who coached 5 different NBA teams, most recently the Houston Rockets, and now with Walter's main rival there, the Brooklyn Nets, as assistant to Steve Nash. Luckily, I had them all on one team, and we ran the table. We won, they call it the Grand Slam over here. We won the Italian Championship, the Italian Cup, and the European Championship. That was it, 3 for 3. So those guys, and you know the story, Mike, and Walt, you know the story. Great people, not only great players, but great people, hard workers in practice, and above all, team-oriented guys. You would think McAdoo led the league in scoring 3 times, he's going to be a gunner. No. I told him, I said, Bob, I don't want you to shoot 20 times a game. Don't get to 20. You can take the 20th shot if it's going to win the game. He never took 20 shots. So these guys, they were all for the team, no individual glory. Everybody wanted team and winning. That was all that counted. So I was the luckiest coach in the world. And let me put in a plug for Mike here. We have the best coach in the state, I tell everybody, and we're glad you're with us, okay? So that's my intro.
Well, I appreciate that, Dan. But I know you as well are a pretty respectful coach. I saw in a book that was written titled The 31 Masterminds of European Basketball. They labeled you, your name was the coach, simply known as the coach. So when that's your title, the coach, that tells you how successful you are in that profession. So congratulations. Just one more quick question. Do you have a favorite memory of your experiences at ETHS that stands out?
Well, I think, my relationship with Jack Burmaster, Mike, you've coached in Beardsley Gym. You can imagine me, a young kid coaching a YMCA club, and Jack let me bring them out and play at halftime of the sophomore game, 8 minutes. At halftime of the varsity game, it was maybe 6 minutes. And my kids were out there on Beardsley Gym floor, had a big impact on them. But I just think every day I went to ETHS, and I know Mason Roca, when I came back 10 years ago, Mason was my captain. So the ETHS chain, and he was the greatest guy. You know him. And I never had a guy play with bigger heart than Mason, So ETHS is with me every day. You can see it back in my trophy case here. I have a lot of things from Evanston and from ETHS. And I think it was one of the greatest things, of course, was seeing Walter and those guys win the state down there in '68. And they looked so great doing it. They were such a great team. They were just like a machine. I think, Mike, they won the final 4 games, 70, 70, 70, 70. They scored 70 points. And you can't get more consistent than that. They were a machine, and Walter was, I had Mike D'Antoni, Walt, and so I got to say this, Mike. Mike was almost as good as you, Walt. Okay, so he was, he was terrific. You know the story, Mike. You got a point guard, you're in business.
Outstanding. Well, we appreciate those memories. Thanks for sharing those, Dan. Let's go on to Walter Perrin, the point guard of the team that is always mentioned whenever we talk Evanston basketball around town, the 1968 state championship team. And thank you for joining us. We know it's been a huge transition in your life now, becoming the assistant general manager for the New York Knicks, transitioning from Utah, where you've been held in high esteem, and now you're building those roads in New York. So congratulations first for that move. And just to speak a little bit about, that NBA lifestyle and the profession you've chosen, what's it been like for you in terms of, the restrictions we've had with COVID and trying to travel and having that all, be turned upside down for you?
Thank you for allowing me to be on here. I'm glad I was invited along with all these other esteemed people. First of all, I'd like to say, Dan, it's great seeing you. I enjoy your daily emails. I've been missing them lately because I've changed. I have to get you my new email address. But your wife looked like she is an absolutely fabulous cook from what you've been showing us. And I thank you for being able to tell us what's going on in Italy in terms of the COVID shutdowns and everything like everything else. And please stay safe and stay healthy over there. You are a legend. In regards to what Mike asked, the restrictions I have right now are, the main one is the travel naturally. In normal times, which, we all hope that we can get back to somewhat normal times, somewhat in a fairly soon fashion. I was maybe on the road 250 days out of the year. So with this COVID, I made 2 round trips to New York since second week in March. So I've been home for the most of that time frame. So that's the main restrictions right now. Along with not being able, I don't allow any of our guys go to games right now because of the COVID restrictions. So we're trying to do a lot of our work, trying to do a lot of our scouting via TV, which is, we enjoy listening to Cassidy and to all the other announcers, but we'd rather be in the gyms to watch them live. So that's been the main restrictions in terms of what I can do with the New York Knicks.
Appreciate that. Well, you're always welcome in our gym. We'd love for you to share the secret of how to bring home a state championship to Beardsley Gym. So you've got that open invitation anytime you'd like to join us. So,
Thank you.
and for you, what about, is there a memory, you probably may have the most enjoyable memory of all of our panelists, but is there a moment in time that you really sticks to you from your experiences at ETHS?
Well, of course, it's the, winning the championship. I've always, as I talked with you about this a little bit, Mike, I've always hoped somebody else could enjoy that experience from ETHS. It was such a amazing experience, heartfelt experience. A couple of things about it was leading up to the championships. I remember our last game of the regular season, and we had a great conference. We had numerous NBA players playing in the conference when I played. We had, our last game was against Waukegan. Waukegan had, I think we beat them in Beardsley. We were up at Waukegan for the last game of the year. We had lost one game during the year to Proviso East. Proviso East had lost to us at home. And I think they had lost to Waukegan in Waukegan, so they had 2 losses. Waukegan had 2 losses. So this was for the championship of the Suburban League. And that was a goal, of course, our first goal of trying to win the Suburban League that year. And it very close game, hard fought. I was fortunate to be on the free throw line down the stretch, knocked down a couple free throws to win the game, to be honest with you. And the unfortunate thing is, at the end of the game, I was at the bottom of the pile of everybody jumping on top of me. So it was a little bit scary, a little bit exciting. And then the other thing was, after winning the championship in Champaign, and a long ride home on the bus, we had a great time on that trip. But as we got closer to Evanston, we had more and more cars lining up behind the bus and honking. And as we got into the city of Evanston and drove around downtown and then back to the high school on Dodge Street, right in front of the high school, we picked up more and more cars and more people were honking. And by the time we got in front of the high school, there was, I don't know how many, I'd say thousands, but it could have been hundreds. But it was a huge crowd in front of the high school to welcome us home. So those were some great experiences for me.
Well, that's outstanding. I appreciate you sharing those thoughts with us, and congratulations. We're chasing the same dreams that you were able to live. So let's move on to Cassidy.
I'm calling for you to be the next one that, like Jack Burmeister, to be the head coach of a championship team for Evanston High School.
Well, the way Brittany's got her girls program going, I might take a page out of her book and see how she handles it, because she may have one before us. So we're racing each other to try to catch you.
Great to have competition.
That's right. That's right. Well, Cassidy Hubbard, we appreciate you joining us today. We know you've really ascended in the ranks of sports journalism here lately. I read where you took the job in 2010 with ESPN, and that's the same year I took the job at Evanston. So it sounds like we both made big career moves earlier at the beginning of the decade. But being a graduate from the Medill School of Journalism, it seems like the entire ESPN most successful sportscasters, that's their home base. So can you share a little bit about what that's like to have those types of successes and influences in the sports journalism world?
Medill Mafia, as they call it. And Walter, you're gonna take that championship mentality, because I know Knicks fans are gonna want that. They need that. They need it more than they need air these days. So make sure. Exactly. And I'll brag a little bit. I'm also an Evanston state champion for soccer, though, not basketball. So that was a fun experience. Winning in 2002. So as far as starting at ESPN about a decade ago, Mike, you and I are just, I don't know when you joined ETHS, but, I celebrated my 10-year anniversary while I was in the bubble, covering, the playoffs this past summer. So that in itself is kind of an interesting experience to, where I started at ESPN to, where I am now, because covering the NBA has always been my dream, which really started at ETHS. I was graduated, like I mentioned, I graduated in 2003 with Austin Brown, who's also on this call. We would go 03 is what we would, how we would celebrate our class. And so, how I started really realizing my dream at ETHS was I was part of the Radio Television Film Club, and I also took a film class at ETHS. And the fact that we even had that in high school is a testament to what an incredible high school that we all went to. So I actually called my first boys basketball game, was one of the biggest assignments I got as a member of the Radio Television Film Club. And Scott Horn, who I know is familiar and works with the program here and there, with Stacey Marangi and Nikas Main. So shout out to them. But I remember calling the game where Scott Horn went off for 9 threes. And I clearly I didn't know what I was doing. So I just was recalling from playing like NBA Jam. I started just impersonating Marv Albert, and I just said, "He's on fire," I think like 50 times. So I may have a clip, so I'll share it with you. It's not good, but it was the beginning of my journey of really exploring sports broadcasting. And from that point on, from high school and identifying and being a part of the Radio Television Film Club, I really didn't have any other dream but to be in sports broadcasting from then. So like I said, I graduated in 03, then went to University of Illinois for a year, and then was able to transfer into the Medill School of Journalism, which was ultimately my dream because I knew what a great program it was. And I got my first couple jobs from the Medill job fair. So I freelanced a little bit, right out of college, and then joined ESPN in 2010. Wasn't covering the NBA then, but I was more of like an independent contractor. So I had to prove my way at ESPN. And then around 2012 is when I got my first job covering the league as the host of NBA Tonight, which was the nightly NBA show that wrapped up, every night in the league. And so we would call highlights and all that. And then this will now be my 5th year on the sidelines covering the NBA. And it's been a remarkable journey. I mean, not only do I work at, a place where many people would say is a dream come true in sports, but I get to cover the league that I fell in love with as a kid, watching Jordan and the Bulls win their championship. So it's just in my blood. So to be able to cover the NBA and work for ESPN, I truly pinch myself every day, Mike.
Yeah, we'll have to, Brittany and I will invite you back to broadcast one of our boy-girl doubleheader New Trier games. So we can, the craze on social media, where were you at the beginning and where are you now? Let's do that comparison of that broadcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it started and where you're at now. So
great, good call. I should repost that for real.
Let's offer you that invitation. And then you mentioned, being a Bulls fan, how that influenced your love for basketball. What was it like? Can you speak a little bit about the experience of did you ever think of covering an NBA All-Star game in your home city this past February? How did that, tell us about that experience?
First of all, Chicago All-Star, I think Austin can attest to this. It feels like 5 years ago, given what this year has been, just to think back. I'm glad that we were able to get it in, because we're not going to have an All-Star game this year in Chicago. I think you know, I was nervous that the city was going to have a hard time hosting because, you know, it's cold in February and our winters are disrespectful, as I like to put it. I mean, you need to have a good coat and, you know, if snow hits, like you need to have a good plan to get from, you know, plan A to plan B. But I couldn't have been more proud of our city. I think we put on a fantastic event all weekend long, and it really was amazing to be able to be a part of it and, you know, feel like I was, you know, the hometown girl, you know, covering the, you know, the All-Star game. So it really was such a magical experience because I felt just a tremendous amount of pride in Chicago. And I can't think of anything that, you know, went wrong. I mean, it was actually really nice when we had a little bit of snow. I think it introduced some people to just how magical Chicago and Chicagoland can be in the winter if you know, have, if you're tough enough to deal with it.
Well, we were really proud to have you representing E-Town and Evanston, you know, as you covered the NBA that weekend, as well as all the seasons. So thank you so much for what you mean to our city. Let's transition to my guy, Austin Brown. I say my guy because this was supposed to be Ohio State-Michigan weekend, and there's no greater Ohio State football fan than Austin's father, Dudley. So
Sure.
former commissioner of FAM over at Fleetwood. So Austin, first of all, welcome aboard. Appreciate you taking the time out and joining us with you know, basketball in 2021. So also for you in your history at ETHS, you had a very successful campaign on the basketball team there, finishing fourth place in state in 2003, having the opportunity to play for a guy who's been and continues to be a very successful coach and person in Paul Prima. Some of our coaching staff also had the opportunity to play for him. So I know, you know, how good of a teacher he is of both basketball concepts as well as life concepts. So we appreciate, you know, him and what he's meant to our program. But for you specifically, can you talk a little bit about, you know, what led you into wanting to become a sports agent? What were some of the motivating factors?
Yeah, no, I mean, first off, thanks for having me. It's incredible to be on with everybody on the panel. I mean, you know, Cassidy, we run into each other all the time, right? Prior to COVID, you know, Walt, I literally see in every single airport because the guy is by far the best at his job. And so you were asking about future players. I won't have them. He will. So don't let him fool you. But, you know, for me, you know, prior to coming to ETHS, everybody had a dream of being a professional athlete at some point, right? So growing up in Chicago, emulated Jordan, as Cassidy said, and quickly realized that being a professional athlete wasn't going to be my path, but nonetheless, I love basketball and it gave me so much. As you alluded to, my dad is the first person who put the ball in my hands. And so getting to Evanston, it's such a unique place. And you mentioned that 2003 team, my senior year, while we didn't win state, I think we were all expecting to, and just the players on that team, and not only the players, but the coaching staff. You mentioned Paul Prima, but there's a lot of other guys, you know, from Jerry Murphy, Little Murph, you know, rest in peace, Bob Vost, who was just so instrumental in so many ways. I mean, going back to my freshman A team, and also, you know, Tom Levatino. You know, I know he's at another high school now, but, you know, Coach Levatino and I go back all the way from my grade school days at St. Joan of Arc. And so for us to be able to sort of have that moment my senior year together was so special. And, you know, that team, again, while we didn't win the ultimate goal, it's really what solidified my belief in basketball, building borders, right? And so transitioning into college, I played small college basketball, but I wanted to be a finance guy my whole life, to be honest. My dad was in finance for over 30 years. And so I just figured that would be my career. And I started off at JP Morgan in the investment bank in New York. right when I graduated from undergrad. After that, went to law school at Washington and Lee in Virginia with the thoughts of being a corporate lawyer. And then had a friend who was doing a one-off internship at a small boutique firm here in Chicago at a sports agency. And he told me, hey, you should do this. You'd be good at it. And, you know, that's sort of where I had that light bulb moment, right? I did the internship and everything clicked. I was going to be able to use the business acumen I attained on Wall Street. Obviously, I was going to be able to use the legal education I was going to get at law school, but most importantly, I was going to be able to stay tied to the sport that I love, which was basketball. So that really changed my career trajectory. And I think if you talk to 10 different agents, you'll get 10 different stories about how they got into the business, right? But for me, I didn't do it because I wanted to be around athletes or because I wanted to be, you know, sort of in the mix. I did it because of what basketball has given me, right? And I think everybody on this panel can attest to that same thing, right? When you're in the moment, you think about the wins, the losses, and all that. When you look back, you don't really remember that. You remember the long plane rides, the long bus rides, you know, the hard times, the good times. And so for me, to be able to be a part of that for athletes and just be a little part of achieving a dream that quite few get to achieve, it's a real honor. It's a real responsibility that I don't take lightly. And so I've been at CA now for over 8 years. One of the co-heads of the basketball group, have had the privilege of working with some literally incredible players, and not just incredible players, but I think Dan alluded to it, you know, when he spoke, incredible people, human beings, right? Cassidy and Walt know this especially, you know, this business is hard. It's stressful, right? Everybody sees, you know, Cassidy on TV or Walt making the draft picks or whatever. And those are the good moments, right? But in between that, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that people don't see. And so for me, it's always been about their personal relationship with the client and really, again, just being a little part in a big dream. So I've been privileged. I've been blessed to work with some great athletes and some great families. And but it all really started, again, at Evanston, going back to playing basketball and being around so many great people and so many legends. And honestly, the diversity that was around the high school has really helped me in my career now, because when I recruit, you meet people from all different walks of life, right? And everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different background. And I think that's what's so special about Evanston, is that everybody comes from a different place, but you're all sort of connected in this big melting pot. So that background and sort of growing up in that environment has for sure helped me transition as I got out of, you know, finance, out of law, and really into the sports space. And it's really carried in what I do today, for sure.
Well, your work speaks for itself. You've been very successful, especially with the clients in recent times that you've been able to work with. And, you know, I'm assuming you have the unlimited talk, text, and data playing with the amount of communication you have.
I've got 2 phones now. I have 2 phones. That's what it's come to. That's what it's come to.
I can picture you in high school nowadays, anyways, that student in the back of the class on their cell phone trying to make some important communications and text during class, and having the teacher, Austin, put your phone away. So I'm sure you spend a lot of time on that.
Not having cell phones in classrooms right
Yeah.
now. I don't know how you teachers do that.
Yeah, we didn't have cell phones.
Next, we have Brittany Johnson, our current women's ETHS basketball coach. And Coach Johnson, appreciate you joining us. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I feel like you and I are the only 2 people that work in that entire high school that aren't alumni of ETHS. There's so many employees that have graduated from that building, but that speaks to how special the place is when everybody wants to come back there and continue a profession at the school. So we're learning that ourselves, you know, how special that place is. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your role models growing up? You know, what led you into, you know, the coaching profession?
So first, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. It's been awesome listening to you just speak about all of your backgrounds. It's really, really inspirational, and I'm happy to be a part of this. So growing up, I was always about basketball. I wanted to be the best player I could be, and I really pushed myself to just excel. I never thought I wanted to get into coaching, but as my career progressed, I dealt with a lot of injuries. Just tore both my ACLs. I actually broke my jaw as well. So I spent a lot of time just outside of basketball. And I think in those times of just watching and watching from the sidelines, it was something that I felt a strong passion for. And I think that's when I decided I wanted to get into coaching. But if I could think about some role models, I was a huge Isaiah Thomas fan growing up. He actually lived not too far from where I grew up, and I was able to actually meet and talk with him a few times when I was younger, and he always just had really great stories, and I just loved his story. And there's a lot of reason why I decided to go to Fenwick, because he talked about the sacrifice of traveling to St. Joe's every day and what just that Catholic education meant to him. And that was a huge inspiration for me to just obviously go to Fenwick and then to Boston College.
That's great to hear. Speaking of your experience playing at Boston College and the successful program that you participated in, and now you've got your own program that you're instilling it here at ETHS. What are some of the similarities? I'm always curious of how coaches have groomed their philosophies and what their kind of pillars are and their foundations in their program. Are there some for you that have carried over from either Fenwick or Boston College, or a little mixture of both? Or have you established new ones here as you've learned kind of the ways of ETHS?
I was able to play for two really good coaches in high school and college, and Dave Powers and then Kathy Inglis. So they taught me, I think, some really great lessons that I still use right now at ETHS. So from Coach Powers, I think we were always very talented at Fenwick. In fact, one year we were actually ranked as the #1 team in the nation. And he had to find a way to get a lot of talented players. I mean, we had almost 11 Division I players on that team. So as you can imagine, just getting us all on the same page was really difficult. And the ways that he went about doing it really helped me to understand how to deal with talent. And we've been lucky to have some really talented teams here at Evanston in the 4 years that I've been here. And I use definitely we used to think about him in the way that Phil Jackson, the Zen Master, and him just being able to coach talented players and get them to work together. So that's definitely one of the things. And then the other is just in college, my college coach, Kathy Inglis, was like a master of preparation. Scouting, it just felt like she always knew exactly what the other team or the other coach was thinking. And that was just through film. So we have introduced film to our kids, I think, for the first time. A lot of them aren't used to the ideas of like scouting the other team and knowing exactly, the play calls and tendencies and things like that. And we've seen a growth just in our program, just from a preparation standpoint. And obviously I get to watch you, Mike, and the things that you do with your boys program. And I think we're both on the same levels of trying to move our programs to being not only best in the state, but also nationally known. And I think we just got, there's steps you have to take. We started out just by saying, okay, we want to win the CSL every year. Once we started doing that, it's like, okay, now we want to compete to win state championships. And obviously the next step after that is just becoming a national program, which is at the high school level extremely hard. But I think the one thing that I love about being at Evanston is just the kids that we get and the support that we get at Evanston. It's like nothing I've seen at the high school level. So I feel like we have everything we need. And I know we talk a lot about both of our teams having great success at the same time. And I think we're both in our window of being able to have a potential state championship team. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I just have one last question. Who was your favorite member on your hiring committee when you got the job at Evanston?
I will say you. I thought you asked great questions. I was shocked to walk in the room and see like 9 people sitting there. I thought I was going to just be meeting with Chris. So that was definitely a surprise. But
no, I only asked that question because just like we tell our players that they need to go out and play against better competition so that they can grow their game, I felt that same way sitting at the interview with you, like, whoa, we've got to hire this person. She's going to do an outstanding job. I need to be nervous and look over the shoulder for my job too, in case she wants to step over to the boys game. So we're thrilled to have you at the high school, and we couldn't be happier. So appreciate all the time and contributions you've made to ETHS basketball these past years and the years to come.
Well, thanks for saying that.
Yeah. So kind of just to switch lanes here a little bit, I think what I've got, I know we're going to get to the COVID questions in basketball in 2021 that David had shared out with us. So I think I've got about 20, and I'll just maybe call out people and we'll bounce back and forth. And I've kind of geared them towards your areas of expertise. But if you feel like you have something to add that would help the content of our show, feel free to just interject and jump in, and we'll make it special. Okay. I just know, like, tonight we're meeting with our basketball team tonight, and maybe we've all been in this position before where mom and dad or mom or dad walk into the room and they tell your other sibling, hey, you have to leave the room. We're going to talk to so-and-so. That's the mood I'm in right now, to talk to our basketball players tonight, because they've kind of laxed on their academics, and so they need a good lesson tonight. So COVID is like weighing me down, and I'm sure you all feel the same way. And I know it is for our student athletes and our players too, because they're going to get that talk tonight where you ask the brother or sister to step out the room so that you can have some good, hard communication. So I didn't want to have this whole thing be about COVID, so I'm glad you all sharing some of your experiences with us. That's going to help make this production a little more positive. So, but let's move on to maybe the topic David had in mind, in terms of adjustments we've all had to face, what the future may look like going forward. I saw where the NBA came out and they talked about some of their adjustments that they're going to make. The one I paid the most attention to was the attire, the dress codes for the coaches. That's great to see. Only because I've always, and Brittany, I think is the same way, when you go to work, you don't dress for the job you have, you dress for the one you want, or the next level up. So, that's kind of put our staff in the position with the Stacey Morainis and the Nikases and the Rudy Mayos and them, to dress like NBA coaches. And trust me, I'm out of my element when I'm standing next to Nikas and Stacey and Rudy, the way those guys can dress. So I'll be happy to be in some pullovers and maybe some hoodies even, who knows. But let's shift gears here for a moment, and let's talk a little bit about basketball as it was in 2020, and basketball as we transition to 2021, as well as basketball beyond 2021. But I think this being a global pandemic, maybe the place we should start is Dan Peterson, being a successful coach over in Italy and in Europe. Can you just speak a little bit about the impact on COVID and what it's had on various levels and places in Europe?
Well, Mike, very quickly, Italy has 16 teams in Series A. So that's 8 games every weekend. And one weekend they played 4 games, and 4 games were postponed because, 4 out of 8 were postponed because teams had issues with, but they will make up those games. Then moving over to the European League, there are 3 different competitions in Europe, but the big one is the Euro League, they call it, the European League. And they've had postponements as well. In fact, Milan, the team I used to coach, they were up in Moscow last night. They won last night. Now they go over to Barcelona. And I think what Walter said was very important. The big problem is travel. I mean, and, being together. It isn't the virus that's the problem. It's people coming into contact. That's the problem with the virus. So they have that. Then you have to look at soccer, football, which is almighty here in Europe. They're playing without people in the stadiums, aside from a few club people. I mean, the stadium last night, Juventus from Turin, Italy, played up in Barcelona, Spain, an arena with 100,000 seats. There were probably 30 people in the arena, 100,000 seat arena. So it was a great game anyway. And I think the thing you're having problems with now, Mike, is the uncertainty of everything. The coaches don't know which players are going to play. You see this in the Big Ten football. Michigan, Ohio State, Minnesota games have been canceled, things like that. So everybody's up in the air. And the thing is, teams, I can say this for basketball and for soccer football, the level of performance is up and down and up and down. And the players, they have a great game and then a bad game. The team has a great game. And let me give you an example. A month ago, Barcelona came to Italy. This is soccer football. And they beat Juventus Turin, which is a legendary team, 2-0. That's like winning a game in basketball by 25 points, okay, 2-0. And so, look, wow, they're going to knock Juventus out of the cup. Last night, Juventus goes up there and wins 3-0. So on total score, it's 3-2. So nobody knows anything. You can't make a single prediction. Nothing's going to come true. The coaches are in great difficulty right now. They don't know who's going to play or how they're going to play or how many minutes they can play, when they can come back from COVID, when is too soon, when is too late. The doctors are almost as important as the coaches. Yeah, this is going to have an influence into 2021. I'm hoping you guys are able to play your season. I think it's good they play. It's a risk. It's a tremendous risk. We all know that. But for some reason, here in Italy, there's no way they could cancel the soccer football league or the basketball league. The fans, they need this. It's a diversion for them. It keeps them happy. And the announcers, Cassidy should know we have some. Cassidy, they're almost as good as you are. Okay, so our announcers. So we have people that are making the game interesting for everybody. They're doing a really good job with that. But the only word I have for 2021, Mike, is, and you know this, uncertainty. Are they going to play? When are they going to start? Can they finish? Can the NBA? Will they have a bubble? They had a bubble for the European League when they finished off last year, and it worked pretty well. But you can't play all the games in the bubble. So things are up in the air, great uncertainty. I have to tell you guys, I have to sign off because I have another, I'm working late at night here. So let's see, it's 7:30 in the evening here, so Brittany, good luck to you with the team this year. Cassidy, I'm so proud to know I went to Northwestern myself, to Medill School, I couldn't be prouder of Walter Perrin, he's saw him play. Mike, I'll tell you something, Mike. If Walter were to come back and to play for you right now, as he was in 1968, you would be a whole lot smarter tonight. Okay, they would say, boy, that guy Ellis is making some great coaching decisions. So he was Jack's brains on the court, and not only that, he talked to everybody. If Farrell Jones got a rebound, give me that ball, Farrell. If Bob Lackey was mad about something, Bob, shut up, calm down, go over there and play. And he was just terrific. The greatest leader, one of the greatest leaders at the point. I think you have to put Dave Tremaine from the '57 team, and there are some other guys, Everett Stevens, other guys. But he's right in there with those guys. So proud to see him with the New York Knickerbockers.
He looks
I'm gonna let you guys go.
Come back and play for
Checks
us.
in the mail, Dan. Checks in the mail.
All right, you send me an email with your new email. Well, ETHS will fight for you for the right to do everything for you. Okay, I love you guys. Brittany, good luck this year. Cassidy, Mike, Walter, David. I love David. Okay, he's great. Take care, you guys. I'm out of here. Bye.
And another thing, hopefully in 2021,
Yeah,
you and I will see each other in Italy.
you be over here. You're my guest. Okay, you're my guest for dinner. I got you. Okay, you're covered, Walt. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Dan.
Bye-bye.
Cassidy, I know we just finished talking with Dan, and he mentioned the term the bubble. It's probably the single, when you think about the sports world, not just basketball, but when you think about sports in general and the impact that coronavirus has had, I think the term the bubble pops in everyone's mind. Yeah, that's the first thing that pops up. I know when we had our season canceled, playing to go to state from the IHSA state tournament. Fortunately, we were all in the same room together and we could have that conversation going over a scouting report that our season was canceled. But yours wasn't, and you were in a unique position where the NBA was really at the forefront of establishing the bubble and the conditions to continue playing sports. Can you speak a little bit about what that life was like in the bubble and all that went into that?
Yeah, I mean, it was truly a remarkable feat by the NBA, and then also, our broadcast teams and ESPN and Turner and the local networks. So it took about 3 months for them to kind of work out all the details. And I think the biggest thing that the NBA did was they continued to move the goalposts and, tweak certain protocols and rules as we learned more and more about the bubble environment. And, that type of leadership, I think you could see in the results. I mean, there was 0 positive tests. We crowned an NBA champion. The product that we watched throughout the summer was spectacular basketball. And if you were watching it on TV, it really the intensity didn't feel that much different. And I would say even in person, they did a great job of trying to create an environment by pumping in noise, doing the virtual fans. They had these things called sound sweeteners, which were basically DJs who monitored the flow of the game. And so if there was a big run a team went on, they would slowly kind of build up the cheering and, in-arena music and sound, where it felt like, as much as it could, like an authentic environment. So it was challenging though. I think, LeBron said it many times, and he recently said it on a podcast. If you weren't in the bubble, it's truly hard to explain just the challenges of it. But I think we saw it manifest on the court a bit, the pros and cons. I think it was really interesting to see how it affected different players. For instance, as we were talking about Donovan Mitchell, and we saw the battles he had with Jamal Murray. We saw Damian Lillard kind of go off. What a lot of players told me was that, sometimes it felt like pickup basketball, because you didn't have kind of the fans to mess up your rhythm. But for other players, LeBron said this as well, because there were no fans behind the basket, it kind of messed up how like their depth perception. And for players like Paul George, who admitted that the isolation really affected his mental state. And, I think that to me, even just being a broadcaster in the bubble, that was really hard to deal with, because usually outside the bubble, you play the game, you'll have crowds of people, whether it be your agent or your friends waiting for you post game to kind of talk. And then you go home to your loved ones and they help you get your mind off of if you messed up in a game, or if you say the wrong stat on air, or, stumble over words like I did. But in the bubble, it was, as soon as the game was done, it was dead silent. Because the virtual fans were turned off, the music was turned off. So it was kind of weird. You go from the highest intensity of playing in these games to dead silence. And then you get on a bus, because everybody, rode buses. We lived and died by the bus schedule in the bubble. And we would go back to our rooms and we would be in our phones. And I remember there was one time I messed up and I accidentally said that Luka Doncic was 19 years old, even, making him even more like of a phenom. And the Dallas fans just ripped me apart. And for some reason, because I had done 2 games in a day and I did a late game, and when, just like a player, and I drank so much caffeine, I usually didn't get to bed until about 4 a.m. And that's a lot what the players would tell me as well. Like, they had a hard time getting to sleep after that. And so then I'd be in my phone thinking, oh my gosh, people are killing me. And there was just no distraction. I didn't have my 2-year-old daughter, pulling at me, or my husband, wanting to binge watch a show just to get my mind off of it. So I just think that type of situation that players dealt with is, you know, some people may say, oh, you know, bring out the violin, like you just had to stay in a fancy hotel and eat catered food, like woe is you. But it was something new that I think these players had to deal with as they competed for the ultimate prize in their career. So there was a lot that happened in the bubble, isolation wise, that were pros and cons for the league to be able to pull that off. And, you know, it was a tremendous feat, as I said, by the NBA, but I think it's going to be an even greater challenge. And when I sat down with Adam Silver during the draft, he said, as hard as it was planning for the bubble, which, I mean, the logistics that the NBA pulled off, getting everyone tested every single day, the technology they did to track people, to set up, you know, proper protocols and, you know, make sure that the product they were putting out was up to the standard of the NBA fan. Like, that was truly a marvel what they did. And Adam Silver told me this is even harder because, you know, as Coach just mentioned, we're entering into this uncertainty. And even though we're seeing other leagues just kind of keep going, there's just a different dynamic when it comes to basketball. And, you know, Doc Rivers told me this. He goes, he himself is concerned that we're going to be able to pull this off. And the example he used, he said, in the NFL, you know, they got what, 1,000 guys in the league. And so they can afford to lose, you know, 3 or 4 guys, and they play every week. Whereas with the NBA, if we lose, you know, 2 of our guys or 1 of our main guys, and they get COVID and they need to be quarantined for, say, you know, 12 days, the schedule we're trying to pull off, you know, playing every other day, getting a 72 game schedule in, that 12-day span could get us out of the playoffs. So, you know, it's going to be a really, really difficult thing to pull off. But, you know, as Adam Silver has proven, he is one of the greatest leaders, and I could put the period there, but in sports. So, you know, I'm trusting that he's trusting science and that he has the right people involved.
Yeah, he's a great leader of an organization, you know, not only in the sports industry, but in any walk of life. So it was great to have you part of that team and environment that set the standards and set the bar so high, you know, for that successful bubble experience. And I would agree with you. You know, you could tell, it was interesting to me watching those games on TV. You could almost tell, and it wasn't you were watching a player play once, you were watching, you know, a handful of games multiple times.
A lot of games.
but what was interesting is the way they played the game. There were some aspects that were showing how well they were coping with living in a bubble. You know, you could just tell that some players it affected them more than others. And I just thought that was interesting, you know, watching those games, how you could tell it was not just about, you know, those 2 hours on the court. You know, there was more involved in it, you know, with what was affecting those players. But hats off to the NBA. They did an outstanding job in setting, you know, what that safe zone would look like for other sports going forward. And then Austin, to have you chime in and speak a little bit about, you know, with that bubble experience and with all these challenges and risks really that these professional sports players are taking. And it's their livelihood, you know, but their health is the most important in terms of management, finances, endorsements. You know, how has the COVID pandemic affected those realms of a professional athlete?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Cassidy gave a really great explanation just about how daunting the task of just going through that can be, right? And I think what we all have to remember is at the end of the day, you know, yes, these guys are athletes. Yes, they're paid a lot of money, but they're still people at the end of the day. They're human beings, right? And so they're living and going through COVID just like the rest of us are, right? And so, you know, as it relates to, you know, I'll sort of talk about, for one, the guys that I had in the bubble, and there was a range of emotions. You know, some guys were ironically, you know, okay with being in the isolation because they normally don't get that amount of time to themselves, right? So they're like, there's a very rare opportunity where I'm in a room by myself. I don't have anybody bothering me, and I can just sort of be normal, right? So that's, and some people would think that's, no, I never thought that an athlete would feel that way, right? But so that's a unique perspective. And then I've had other guys who were literally like, if they do another bubble, I'm not playing ever again, right? And so, and everywhere in between. And Cassidy's probably gotten that too. I know Walt's gotten that from an array of players as too. Well, and quite honestly, just personnel, people who were inside of there, you know, agents, we weren't allowed inside the bubble. But I can only, again, I was sort of living vicariously like through my clients. And as the days went on, you know, I had, you know, Kyle Kuzma, who was on the Lakers, so he was there the whole time, right? And just people don't understand the mental toll that takes. You know, again, going from having to ramp yourself up for a game and then all of a sudden starting back down, right? And again, you know, some guys I think really thrived in the environment of not having fans, right? Because Cassidy alluded to it, it was almost just like a pickup game. So it's like, all right, let's go out and hoop, and whoever's better on that given moment is going to win. I think, being honest, you know, the Denver Nuggets to go to 2 7-game, you know, series, right? I had Gary Harris on that team. You know, I don't know that they could do that if they were in a normal environment, right? Where they're playing with home crowd, like, you know, Walt's shaking his head like no chance, right? Like it's almost virtually impossible. But for me, it was really interesting to see how that sort of leveled things out, right? So it was almost about how can you be resilient? What kind of resolve do you have? And from a coaching standpoint, how do you really, you know, and coach, you could probably tell us, you know, how do you get your guys really motivated to block out all of the other stuff that's going on and really get dialed into what the task at hand. So, you know, but as it relates to the endorsement part, you know, just sort of the recruiting in general, you know, you mentioned it earlier, you know, the college season was wiped out, right in the heart of conference play, conference tournaments, no NCAA tournament. Walt knows this. That's the time of year for us, especially where we're at all those tournaments. We're at those games. We're recruiting guys. You know, for me, I'm usually locking in the guys I'm going to sign. You know, this year I had Obi Toppin who went to the Knicks. And Walt might know this. I signed Obi via FaceTime, right? Like I didn't meet him. And I don't know if that'll ever happen again. I hope it never happens like that again. But normally in March, April, May, I'm in LA with our guys where we have our pre-draft training program. I'm with them every day. You're getting to know them. You're watching them work out. You're watching them make the progress. You're talking to them about the different cadences of going through a pre-draft process. You know, Cassidy, myself, and Walt would have all been here in Chicago for the pre-draft, right? And we would have been going through those things that we do every single year. So it was just different. For us, we had to get creative. So we had a lot of virtual workouts. We sent workout kits to all of our different guys who were stationed in different areas around the country as rookies. And we had them doing virtual training sessions, right, with the people that we normally use out in LA. From an endorsement standpoint, I think, you know, the global economy is really tough right now. And so whether it's shoe deals, you know, traditional endorsement deals, you've seen those either sort of stay stagnant or drop down a lot. The shoe business was actually sort of on a trend of backing up in terms of signing guys prior to COVID anyway. And so this has only exacerbated the problem. You know, normally in a traditional draft year, every first round pick will have a shoe deal, right? You know, ranging in money depending on what position you play, what market you're in. Now, you know, a lot of these shoe companies are saying they're not signing any rookies at all. They're not doing any deals, right? And then the veterans that have shoe deals up, some of those guys aren't getting renewed, right? And so it's just it's a different world. I think for us at CAA, we've done a great job at using our marketing group and really trying to, again, get creative about how we help add that value to players, right? We've done so many things virtually. I think in some respects, COVID has taught us that while we're all used to in this business crisscrossing the country every day, there are things that we can get done to be a little bit more efficient to where maybe we don't have to travel as much. So there's always a silver lining, but I've seen brands get really creative too about the initiatives that they're doing and being a little bit more strategic. And again, they still have to generate revenue, right? So it's just a more uncommon way of generating that revenue. So because of the relationships that we've had with the various companies, we've been able to sort of partner with them and find some really good deals for our clients. But make no mistake, like, it is different. And the word that's being thrown around here on the panel, which is the right word, is uncertainty. I think if anybody tries to act like they know where this thing is going, they're just lying, right? None of us know where this is going. And that's, we were talking about the schedule. That's why the NBA only came out with the first half of the schedule to start, right? Because they need to be flexible and they understand that this thing could change on the drop of a dime. So it's really just about honestly waking up every day and just rolling with the punches and just trying to get through that day. A bubble, Cassidy said it, like, it's incredible that they were able to actually get that done. Like, and if you look at the logistics between, whether it's football or, like, again, football only plays, as a team once a week, and you travel and you come back. So how is this sort of, new schedule that the NBA came out with, how is that going to translate, right? And again, you've already seen now there have been positive tests that have popped up already in training camp. So, and the protocol right now is, it's set, but it's not set. So, there are guys right now who are testing positive, or they might have not tested positive and they just have a family member in their household that tested positive. Right now, the way the rules are written, if that happens, that player's out for 10 days, like, no questions asked.
I think Contavious Caldwell Pope had a great quote where he was like, this whole protocol, I think the hardest thing is going to be having to have conversations with my wife about her friends.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, no, that's so true though, because again, it might not just be you getting it. It could be somebody close to you getting it, and you're knocked out for 10 days. I think right now you've got to test. You got to test negative 8 days in a row, and then right after that, you're allowed to start individual workouts, and then but they're only by yourself. Not day 9 and 10, you still got to test negative again. And then on the 11th day, you're allowed to rejoin your team, right? And so to Cassidy's point earlier, think about if you are running a franchise in a front office like Walt is, right? And you have your franchise cornerstone or your 2 rookies or whatever go down, they're out for at least 10 days. In a 72 game, season, a condensed season, that could be the difference between, being right there at the edge towards the end and being right on the outside looking in. So again,
shape to the NFL, like where we just saw Lamar Jackson play in a game last night and after, testing positive for COVID. But I just think that the magnifying glass is going to be a little bit closer on Adam Silver, given how they didn't have a test. They're going to follow strict protocol. Not saying it's not, but I just feel like it's just going to be a little bit more intense around the NBA.
I totally agree. And look, I'll leave it this, the NBA has really, and Cassidy could probably talk about this better than anybody, being at ESPN, but, I think the NBA has really transitioned over the last couple of years in terms of being like the sport that people are following, right? Like before, the NFL used to sort of just command, like especially ESPN, right? Like nobody was touching the NFL. Now, everybody's enamored with free agency, right? Everybody's enamored with the draft and all the sort of stories that go on. And so the NBA is sort of, in terms of professional sports, especially this past couple of years, is, I would say, at the epicenter of what fans want to consume, right? And so to Cassidy's point, that microscope is going to be on the NBA even more. Yes, they were able to be successful with the bubble, and that was an incredible feat. But now, again, because they already knew players weren't going for that. And remember, let's not all forget, there was a moment where the bubble almost was gone. Like there was no more, right? Like there was serious talk. I had players inside of there who were telling, teams are about to leave. We're done. Like we're not coming back to play, right? So them even being able to start that back up was a feat in itself. So you wonder now how all the logistics are going to work. And again, it's going to be, to use the word again, uncertain, but we just have to sort of take it day by day. And again, trust that, Adam Silver is going to do his best, which we all know he is. But more importantly, we have to keep these players safe, because at the end of the day, like that's what it's about. Like playing basketball and playing sports is so important, but these are human beings. They're real lives and they have real families. And we've got to do everything we can to make sure that we keep them healthy, and so that moving forward, we can sort of get back to some sense of normal.
in terms of moving forward in the game of basketball, we're not certain how the season ended in 2020. We're not even certain how it's beginning in 2021. And then we get into the following season and all the changes that we'll be facing with what COVID has brought to our society. But Cassidy, for you, in terms of all the changes that the NBA has made, I know Austin spoke of some and how the first half of the season schedule is all that's been planned to provide the maximum amount of flexibility. Do you see, any of these changes and adaptations permanent, or do you see some good that has come out of the brainstorming of, how can we make this league and this environment safer for our players and our product?
Well, I mean, when you ask me, do I see, anything permanently changing? I think I think players are going to stop their, 5-minute handshakes like we would see in the past. I don't know. I'll just speak on really kind of the rules and regulations around media and reporters. I'm having to kind of come to grips with losing a lot of access. As I'm getting ready to prepare for my Christmas Day game, which I'm going to be in Milwaukee for Warriors Bucks. I'm learning that I'm not going to have access to the court. I'm not going to be in the same tier as I was in the bubble. I'll be in the tier above, which is where our announcers were in the bubble. So all of my access is going to be I'm going to have to do it via phone, meaning I'm going to have to hit up Austin like every other day, asking him to give me some scoops so I can, contribute to the broadcast, because it's going to be different. I used to be able to go behind the benches and listen and observe. And I don't know where I'm going to be able to be placed in arenas, and specifically if some of these arenas have fans, because I know, there are some arenas who are still planning on having full capacity, depending on the state. There's also, I think a lot of people have seen the images of big media scrums, whether it be, pictures of, famous pictures like Michael Jordan with, rows and rows of reporters. I could see teams, trying to take advantage of new technology and just setting up Zooms, which this is how we get media access now to players, is just scheduled Zoom calls, which, puts us at a disadvantage, because oftentimes I will fly in to cover a game. Since I'm on a national broadcast, I'm not assigned a beat, which is, a specific team. I would come in a day or 2 days ahead of time, and I would go to practice, and I'd be able to pull a guy aside and, ask him a few questions that I could report on in games. And, I just don't see that type of one-on-one access happening in the next year plus, just because, I think this league is going to err on the side of caution and protecting its players, which is protecting, the ability to have a league, is going to be of utmost importance. So I'm going to have to get real creative, and it's going to push me to be better at my job. And I guess I just got to keep reminding myself how thankful that I have a job. So just Austin, just, get ready for some text messages, okay?
Most definitely true.
I got you. Though, Evanston people got to stick together. So,
Right.
Yeah, the Wild Kids family is strong and true. So we'll all protect each other. But Walt, we were just speaking about the COVID-19 pandemic and what that looked like in a transition from challenging those at the beginning of 2020 and moving into 2021 and possibly even beyond 2022. And you may have the most glaring fingerprint on the future of the NBA with the decisions you make, in the scouting of the players and drafting players. You certainly have a great impact in what that looks like in the future of basketball. So how do you see the adaptations we've had from this pandemic affecting scouting and drafting and being able to view, college players? Are there anything that any changes, modifications you think could be permanent?
I think there will be some changes. I don't know what's going to be right now, what's going to be the things that stay in permanent. I think most of us in the NBA are, Dan used the word uncertainty. I think there's also another word we can use it in terms of being hopeful. Hopeful that we will go back to not maybe the old norm, but a new norm, where we'll be able to be in arenas again, fans in the stands, my scout staff being able to go out watch games live, being able to see Austin at conference tournaments or shoe company events or hoop summit or whatever it is. So we're hopeful that it will eventually return to that. Now, when that is, I don't think we any of us have any idea. I think the earliest might be next summer, but it might be like Cassidy said, it might be a year from now. So who knows for sure. But in terms of changes that we've done with the scout staff, I'll ask anybody on this call, had anybody heard of Zoom before March?
No.
Now everything is Zoom. So, we're doing Zoom conference calls with our scouts, and we're watching game film and talking about a game. Normally I'll have them in the theaters and in the practice facilities, and we'll be talking about it face to face. But right now we're doing it on Zoom. We're doing interviews with the prospective prospects in the draft on Zoom interviews. We're not doing it face to face like we have in the past. I would say going forward, we will probably continue to use Zoom, not necessarily for the top-notch guys, but guys who might be in the category of maybe non-draftable G League type players. I would think we will continue to use Zoom for that instance or interviews. But other than that, again, the thing is, right now is the travel. Again, over the year, here's something I will do going forward, and hopefully, other people will also. Over the many years that I've traveled, not only domestically, but internationally, I've noticed, and it's been very rare, but I've noticed a few people coming on the plane that are wearing masks. And I'm thinking, okay, why are they wearing masks? And, everything's fine, there's no problems. But now I understand why they're wearing masks, because they don't want to infect other people. They may be a little bit on the sick side, so they don't want to infect other people. I know myself going forward, even once the vaccine comes in and everybody has it, I'm going to be conscious of that. I may wear a mask on a plane now, especially if I'm going overseas, just to be cautious, just to be careful. So I think that is something hopefully people will understand, people will respect other people and respect themselves and be aware of if they're sick or not, whether any other body is sick, and will wear a mask on occasion. So those are the things that I see going forward right now.
Yeah, those are all some really good points. I think with all of us in all the professions that we have right now, as coaches, we always tell our players, you got to work harder. You got to find a way. You got to get in the gym. You got to work harder and harder. I think what this pandemic has done is challenge us to think about working smarter. What are different ways that we can take on and approach something different with the boundaries and the guidelines that have been placed all on us. So I really think this pandemic has challenged us to turn the sphere a little bit and look at it from a different angle and try to analyze, what can we do a little more efficiently in the future with the old way of doing things. So those are all good points. Brittany, I want to turn to you for a moment. And if you could just give us some insights of where the Illinois High School Athletic Association is with their 2021 season. I know that's paused currently, but what are you hearing about what are some options for high school basketball this year?
Well, Mike, I know we've had, feels like a million conversations where things change like almost hourly. But I think it's been, for us in Illinois, it's been really hard because number one, most of the other states have a start date. You know, they know exactly when their season is starting, whether they're playing right now or they're going to play in January or in some cases in the spring. But we have no idea. And I think it's been really frustrating for a lot of the coaches that I've spoken to. I know that we've talked about, you know, our administration at Evanston has been great. They've been extremely transparent about exactly how they want things to run. And that hasn't necessarily happened with the IHSA, where there's just been a lot of different information going out. And I know Cassidy and Austin both talked about the leadership of Adam Silver in the NBA. And I think in order for us to get to a point where we can just have conversations about this season, there has to be better leadership. And it's just not happening right now. It's a little frustrating. And I know it's caused, and I don't know if this is happening in other states or not, but it's actually caused kids to leave this state to play basketball in, you know, Iowa or Michigan or other places. And I know as coaches, we want that to stop, and we want to get some answers. So right now, you know, we're waiting for the IHSA. I think they have another meeting next week to just kind of give us some insight on whether or not they believe we can get started in January. I know they talked about possibly allowing us some more contact days. If that doesn't happen, I know there's been a push to have our season start in April. But it's just, like I said before, it's just so frustrating. And I know it's hard for our kids, especially, to just kind of maintain a focus and a motivation with just, I know the word we've been using is uncertainty, and they just have no idea about how we're gonna move forward. And, you know, for them, it's already hard enough. I mean, they're on Zoom all day for classes. And then, you know, I know that you and I are trying to get together with them after school to do things remotely, which, you know, it's hard to get them motivated to do that considering they've been in class all day. So we've been having to be really creative and try to make things that are going to be both like productive for them, but that they're also, you know, getting better at the same time. So I think this is something that we just have to take daily. And, you know, I've obviously been talking to you a lot about what you've been doing with your program, and you've been talking to me, just trying to figure out ideas of how we can, you know, help these kids. I feel so bad for them. And I think, like I said before, in Illinois, it's just been really hard because we just, you know, it's December and we have no information about whether or not our season is going to happen or not.
Yeah, I would agree with all those thoughts. You know, we're in a place right now, especially a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, you know, you can see the challenges on their face and in their body language. And you want the best for them. So hopefully we have some clarity here in the short future, and they have that opportunity to have a basketball season this 2021 school year. But I feel very honored to be able to have this meeting here with all of our distinguished ETHS graduates and alumni that we've had. You know, it was a pleasure hosting this with some of the greatest success stories in terms of basketball and the city of Evanston and the high school at Evanston Township. To be able to have, you know, Dan and Walt and Cassidy and Austin and Brittany, our women's coach. We want to thank you, you know, taking the time to share your thoughts and thinking about, you know, what the future looks like and what we've all been through. So I just want to say thank you and appreciate all you do, and definitely the representation that you put out there for our high school. It helps us, you know, when we have to teach lessons to these young men and women. So appreciate all of you.
Wow, that was fun. I felt like I was sitting in my living room talking with old friends about basketball, particularly about ETHS, but also about the NBA and what's going on and how the game's going to change over time. We hope you enjoyed tuning into this on YouTube. We also will be posting this and keeping it in our archive for you to look at. If you want more information on ETHS or the Alumni Association, you can contact us through the website or by sending an email to alumni@eths.k12.il.us. Or you can also support ETHS by going to supporteths.org. That's the link to the ETHS Foundation, which raises money to support capital improvements and programs at Evanston Township High School, including COVID relief. We really appreciate you joining us to this monthly series. Next month, we will be having Pulitzer Prize winner Jack Rako from the class of 1964. Jack is a historian who is at Stanford University, and he is going to be interviewed by retired U.S. history teacher Arch Bryant. They're going to be talking about the Electoral College, past, present, and future. If you have ideas for future topics, if there are things you'd like to hear about or questions you have, please email us at alumni@eths.k12.il.us or look at our website and contact us through that. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great holiday season, and it's a great day to be alive.